When we rely on anything for feeling better, we are unconsciously diminishing our own ability to self-soothe and cope with difficult issues. And we are slowly and increasingly building up a reliance on whatever we are using to deal with that stress. In my own life, I have noticed this personally when getting hooked on cigarettes. I would do it between comedy shows, and I would perform, and then everybody in between sets would go out back and smoke, and it was a social bonding time, and I did it, and over time, it became a habit. Over time, I thought I'll only smoke after a show. And then I started doing shows regularly. And this is a very common thing with artists. We put our souls out there, and the audience, the critics, they give their opinion, and hopefully it's good, but not all the time. And so there's a lot of stress with any creative field because we are showing and exposing our souls to the world and for them to judge. That's the nature. So a lot of artists will turn to alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, and it will be at first just something to lighten the load, to release a little steam. But eventually, almost with certainty, these artists forget that they know how to release that stress, and they become dependent for their work, and they feel their work will suffer if they quit whatever bad habit they started. And so it's a really slippery slope when we too easily and too often give in to temptation and rely on some external source for our mood regulator. These days, everyone on earth is selling some kind of stress release solution, whether it is a Coca-Cola, an open happiness, or go for a run in Nikes and maybe you'll feel better. But I personally like to go way back and look at what was working thousands of years ago, before this hyper-capitalistic society we find ourselves in, before marketing departments needed to sell something. And time again, I come back to the simple meditations and yoga that have just been passed down generation to generation because each generation noticed the benefits and noticed how essential this practice was to living a whole, meaningful life. Start with just a few minutes a day, focusing on your breath or focusing on a mantra. And if you don't have a mantra, Om is a perfect mantra. And we just say silently to ourselves with closed eyes over and over, just calmly, comfortably, at any pace that feels nice for you. And we just say Om to ourselves. Another practice is to follow the breath, and we just stay conscious of all of the sensations of the in-breath and the out-breath. And something that is very important to remember when trying to resist temptation, instead of resisting, try understanding. And so when that urge comes up, just notice it and sit with it and watch that urge. Watch how it tries to convince us to give in. Watch how it feels in the body, and simply sit with it. And as you are sitting with it, as you are watching those very persuasive thoughts, the repetitive screaming demands of our ego for giving in to temptation, and remember that giving in to the temptation will lead to more craving, more longing, more being distracted by that craving. It will diminish our ability to be happy on our inner source of happiness. Makes us more easily agitated, more quick to anger, and more dependent on whatever that substance or activity is. And simply witnessing how that urge after a few minutes goes away, and how maybe something triggers it a few minutes later, and notice how it goes away. Because our mind is always changing. Our thoughts are always changing. And what we feel and think 5 minutes ago will not be what we think about and feel about 5 minutes from now. And the more we develop the ability to sit with and witness uncomfortable thoughts and emotions, the stronger we become, the more we grow and evolve as people, and the greater source of strength we can be for ourselves and the ones we love.